self-regulation has two parts. One is what you do in that moment. And in that moment, we've already talked about stop, drop, and breathe, the pause button. And we've already talked about mantras, which are a way to change your mind. They're a way to change your mind about what's going on, right? And we also could talk about other ways to change your bodily feelings, right? You can do other things, like you can go run your hands under cold water or under warm water. That's often really good. Breathing, we've already talked about, but more breathing is always helpful, right? And when you're super mad and you can't get past it, it's often really helpful to do something physical. Not so much beat up a punching bag, but anything that's physical that gets that adrenaline out of your system, basically, that feels like you fought off the tiger. It's not, I hasten to add, there's research that shows you don't want to just hit a pillow, because that can convince you you're angry, right? When I'm talking about this, it's more physical exercise. We go running, do something physical, because it does transform your body chemistry, right? And that's not in the moment when you're having an issue with your child, but later, if find you're angry and you can't shift out of it, that's helpful. And another thing to do, again, not at that moment with your child, but later, laughter. Laughter is really helpful to shift the body chemistry. So if you notice your well-being is not in a good place, so, it's what you do in the moment, but it's also, I said, the second part of self-regulation is what do you do 24/7, right? So 24/7, you monitor your emotions. You monitor your sense of well-being. If you notice it's 3:30 or 4 or 5 o'clock and you're just sort of done, the day has been hard and you just, wow, it can really help to laugh. And usually we don't have any energy left. We want to have a cup of coffee. And that's the worst thing for us, because it'll just keep us up at night, right? Coffee stays in your system for a while. I mean, I love coffee, right? But at that point, it's a bad idea for me. I know it'll keep me up until 1 a.m. So instead,
again, mad.
Yeah. So instead, great that you monitored your well-being. You noticed you need a pick-me-up. What other pick-me-ups could you use? Because if you don't do something to shift your well-being and you feel like you're at the end of your rope, then everything your kid does is going to push you over the edge, right? So instead, what if you got some laughter going? I know it seems hard because it seems like it would take, a lot of energy, but usually if you can just ease into the laughter, kids will take it from there, and you'll start, and you find it energizes you. It shifts your energy. It reduces the stress hormones circulating in your body, which make you tired after they've been in there for a while. Cortisol makes you tired, right? And it makes you feel more connected to your kids. So you have that little insurance safeguard that when they do something, you'll have a little more patience with them. So, even as kids get older, I mean, if they're little, you just pick them up and throw them around, or you say, oh, I'm going to get you. But when they're older, you can just take a pillow off the couch and throw it at one of them, and suddenly there's a pillow fight going on, right? And I wouldn't do it if they were just nasty to you, obviously, because then it's a hostile act. You're not trying to do a hostile act. You're trying to get everyone laughing, right? So I'm just suggesting that notice your mood and find ways to shift it. Maybe in the course of your day, set your device to go, if you've got a watch or if you've got a phone, set it to go off every hour with a little buzz, and just every hour say to yourself, oh, what do I need right now for me? Oh, I just need a few deep breaths. I need someone to not touch me for the next 10 minutes. I need to go to the bathroom and pee. Moms are famous for putting off peeing. I need a cup of tea and just to sit for a minute without having to be productive, right? Oh, I need to return that phone call because it's been weighing on my mind for the last 2 hours and I haven't made it a priority, but it's going to keep weighing on me and it's making me snap at everybody and I'm dreading doing it, but I'll feel better once I do it. Whatever it is, taking care of you, because you can only give your child emotional generosity if you're being generous to yourself, right? If you replenish yourself all day long. So it doesn't have to be big things. It can be these little things I've described. It can be making sure you get something to eat that has protein in it. It can be saying something nice to yourself, talking to yourself like someone you love, right? So all of this, just getting enough sleep, all of these ways of taking care of ourselves, I think are critical for us to be the self-regulated parent we want to be. And then the final thing is working on our own triggers. If there's something that sets you off every time it happens, it's not about that thing. It's about your own history that's getting triggered by that thing, right? And so, like for me, disrespect was a big thing. And I realized if I had disrespected my stepfather when I was young, I would be smacked, right? Like hard. And I realized, oh, when someone's disrespectful, it's an emergency, right? So important to notice the things that set us off. I had no problem with a child crying. I didn't even have a problem if they were angry. My problem was when they were disrespectful to me, right? So I had to work on that. So whatever your trigger is, notice it, work on it, journal about it. If you need to, talk to a counselor about it. As you don't have to do it all at once, but just keep moving in the direction of helping yourself heal your old baggage. And then, you know, um, Lou Hennessian said once a thing I've never forgotten, I like to quote, which is unpack your baggage so your children don't have to carry it.
Ah, that's a good one. All right. So, couple of things I want to go back to in what you just
Okay.
said. So let's go back to the laughing thing. So I want to see your take on this. Is it okay to use screens for this? I want to get your feel for it
Yes.
because at the end of the day, if my daughter and I are both tired and it doesn't look like we can be in the same room without, like,
Yep.
so it's like, let's watch Ellen for a few minutes or let's watch Fallon for a few minutes. We bring up YouTube, watch Jimmy Fallon do something stupid or Ellen do some stupid games, and it's just 5 minutes of watching those, and at the end of it I'm like, okay, it's time for you to go for your bath now. She actually goes.
Yeah.
But before that 5 minutes, if I told her go for your bath, she would be like, no, right? So I want to get your take on, is it okay to rely on screens in situations like this for short periods?
Yeah. I think it's fine. Your daughter's how old now?
11.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think when they get to 10 or 11, it's much harder to make that connection and get them laughing.
Mm.
They have some, they're trying to be independent in the world.
And
And
opinionated.
oh my goodness, their sense of independent personhood
Mm.
depends. It's sort of like with toddlers, do it myself. Well, they're the same way. It's like, don't you tell me what to do. Don't you give me any advice. You know, and I don't need you. They do, of course, but they're like, I don't need you because I'm an independent person, right? And so now we need to stay close to them so they're open to our influence, but we also need to respect their development into a separate person who can rely on themselves. If we're always telling them what to do and how to solve their problems, what message are we giving them? They can't solve their problems themselves. Even if we're right about the advice, it doesn't matter. We're undermining their self-confidence. And they need to be out there in the world every day without us, lots of hours, navigating hard things, right? So we need to let them be somewhat separate from us, right? As much as they want to be. And then we need to be there when they fall apart too, right? So yes, I think it's a lot harder to break through that and get them laughing by the time they're 10 or 11, preteens. And so I think if a screen is what you need to do it, great. Some people, they can just use funny voices and their kid laughs, or they can, like me, I started pillow fights. But I don't see anything wrong with it. If you and your daughter have Ellen as a go-to or Jimmy Fallon as a go-to and also it sounds like you're very good at limiting the time. It's not like 2 hours later you're still there watching, right? It's a 5-minute thing. I think that's also good because you're not giving them the message, when we're having a hard time regulating, we watch TV for hours and hours. You're not giving them that message. You're saying it's fine to use tools to shift your emotional state, and it's fine to use a screen to do it even. I think actually a screen is a lot healthier than eating sugar or taking a drink of wine or all the other things that humans do, right? To self-regulate. So I think it'd be great if you develop some other things that you could try sometimes, right? So that it's, but I don't even think it's a terrible thing if it's a daily little ritual that every day you unwind by doing it every single day for 5 minutes. You know what I'm saying? I don't even think that's bad. I think it would be if there was no limit on it, that it would be problematic.
That's why I love YouTube. It's like one clip, it's just like one clip for Fallon or something like that. So we watch
Yeah.
one clip, and
Yeah.
sometimes we just watch the same clip
Yeah.
again and again, sometime in the
Yeah.
future, because that's our thing.
Yeah.
All right. So the other thing that I wanted to ask you out there is that just because we don't react to these feelings doesn't mean that we should not have those feelings in the first place, right? That is not reasonable.
That's
But we
important.
are not trying to suppress those feelings. We're
Right.
just trying to suppress our reaction to those feelings.
Yes, and I'm not even sure I would say suppress, because you're right. You're totally right about this. And I'm so glad you brought it up because it's easy to misinterpret this. When we have an emotion, it's a signal to us. And until we acknowledge it, let ourselves feel it, we keep it. It's there. It's in our body. I call it the emotional backpack, but of course the backpack is the body, right? And so we're carrying it around in our body, and it's making us sick and tired until we let ourselves feel it, and then it begins to vanish, right? So I'm not, and why is that? If you have a feeling, and I say to you, don't feel that, Samhita, or is it going to go away?
No.
No. Now you might try hard not to feel it. Oh, I might say, oh, well, I don't want to be jealous of my sister who had this great thing happen, let's say, so I can't feel jealousy. I wouldn't feel jealousy of her. So then what happens? I'm suppressing it, right? I'm cutting off my awareness of it. Awareness is in your mind. I'm cutting off my awareness. It's still there in the body, right? Whatever that is. So I think that's not ever useful. What's useful is always noticing, wow, I'm jealous of my sister or my best friend who got this promotion or whatever it is, right? I'm jealous of that. Or I'm really sad because my son is struggling with whatever. Those things are all allowed. What I wouldn't want to do is be mean to my sister or cry when my son is talking to me about his problem. I don't want to start crying myself, right? And why is that? Because that's not helpful to him. I'm responsible for my own feelings. He's not responsible for them, right? So if we're more aware of the feelings, we're not going to act out unconsciously. You may have heard the term act out. Someone's acting out. Act out means you're acting out something you can't articulate, that you're not even conscious of. So you act it out, right? That's the unconscious. That's why when you say to your child, like 14-year-olds, what were you thinking? They weren't thinking. It wasn't conscious. But that's even true for us, where we're screaming at our child like a crazy person. What were we thinking? We weren't thinking. That was stuff that we've been stuffing, how we feel taken for granted, and our husband isn't helping and our other kid isn't helping. And then this kid gets the brunt of it where, what are you, spoiled brat, right? But actually that's our unconscious talking, right? Because when we stuff our feelings, they're no longer under conscious control. So the more you can notice the feeling, the more under conscious control it is. And I would say absolutely notice it, honor it, let yourself feel it. That's why journaling is really helpful. You can let yourself feel it. Talking to someone is really helpful, as long as that person doesn't feel like they have to fix you or judge you, right? Just being able to, because when you talk about it, if I were to talk about my best friend got this promotion I wanted and I didn't, or my child has this social problem and I'm sad about it. If I'm talking to somebody about it and that person's just listening, I'm feeling all those feelings. As I feel them, I'm getting the message and I'm letting them go. I have a whole thing in my workbook, my Peaceful Parent Happy Kids workbook. It's the one that deals the most of my 3 books with emotion because of 2 reasons. One is, as I noticed parents would come up to me at my talks, or they would write me notes and they would say, I read your book, but I still have this question, right? One of the questions that came up a lot was about emotions for the parent as well as the child, and understanding emotion and self-regulating. So in the workbook, I deal a lot with self-regulating and emotions. It's the whole first half of the book. And so I have a whole chart of what emotions mean. Like, what's the message in sadness? What's the message in jealousy? Right? How should we handle those emotions? How could we think about them to be constructive with them? So, that's work. And one of the highest compliments I get about the workbook is, wow, I forgot I was reading a parenting book because I was doing all this emotional work on myself. And I realized I had done so much growth. I was so, it's like a shortcut to self-growth yourself, right? So anyway, yes, we're not stuffing the emotions, we're feeling them, but we're choosing not to be swept off our feet by them and take action. We're choosing to calm down before we decide the appropriate action, right? Because when you're in fight, flight, or freeze, you're not going to take an action that you want to take.
Right. So I just realized this happens to me every time I'm talking to you. I lose track of time. So we are almost at the end of our time for the first segment. So what I'm going to do is we are going to stop here.
Okay.
And when we come back in the next segment, we'll look at the other 2 big ideas, connection and coaching. So we'll do both of those in the next segment. So everyone, as you watch this at home, we're going to take a short break now. Just below this segment, you'll find the link, the video for the next segment. Be sure to come back and join us. In that segment, we'll look at the other two big ideas, connection and coaching instead of controlling. All right, so we're going to take a short break right now.